So Erik Ten Hag has reportedly cracked down on new contracts being given out to Manchester United players after what has been a pretty disastrous decade of ridiculous contracts being given out to players who haven't warranted those massive wages. I'm joined by Stephen Howson to go through some of the contracts that United players have currently got, some of that are expiring this summer, and a little look at what seems to be maybe a sort of mood change or structural change that Ten Hag's tried to implement here. First of all, this is coming from the back of this James Ducker article in the Telegraph yesterday. So let me give you a few quotes on this sort of new model that Ten Hag is trying to bring in. So he said, he's still in a phase of let's see how people are and let's see what they're up to. Apparently a senior source said, how they adjust, how they handle pressure, how they handle not being picked, how they deal with different challenges. He's still understanding them, and over the next month or so, he'll start getting clarity in his head. And further on it says, while there is a possibility of some players leaving for free at the end of the season, such as Phil Jones, it remains to be seen if United opt to trigger the 12-month options in the contracts of others, primarily with the intention of trying to sell them for a fee next summer. In a second, we'll go through some of those players with the optional extension, but just give me your thoughts on this sort of radical idea of not giving players massive contracts unless they've earned them.
This is definitely a post-Fergie problem United have had.
Yeah.
I don't really remember this ever being a massive issue under Fergie. He was clearly the manager, the director of football, seemingly the chief scout as well at times, and chief negotiator. He kind of wore like 5 or 6 different hats as well as being the manager.
Yeah.
Once he vacated the role, he brought David Moyes in. I don't know if you remember this at the time, Nani got that 5-year deal. I think it was in David Moyes' season. And it was a weird one because he was gone like the next year, and you're kind of thinking like, what was the point of that? But that almost then set this precedent of, and there's the rumour, wasn't there, which sort of was kind of sort of confirmed in the last 6 months, which is that the Glazers put the value of those contracts on a spreadsheet somewhere and get to call it money.
Yeah.
Whereas in reality, that isn't how it's not an asset to a football club, it's a burden to a football club, but the way they do their accounting, it's classed as an asset.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously the wage bill is one of the most significant things, and United currently have the highest wage bill in the Premier League. And wages have a 98% correlation to success, showing that we're clearly ballsing up our contract situation. We've got some mad players on some mad money. It probably peaked, I would imagine, at the Alexis Sanchez fiasco.
Yeah.
And since then, United have struggled to rein it in. Because of the Alexis Sanchez scenario, David De Gea came in and got a bananas contract that, you know, makes him the highest paid goalkeeper in the world. I can't believe it's had to come to the manager to say, hey, this is a shit idea, lads. What is John Murtough doing? Supposedly as the director of football, that's entirely under your remit, is to structure the club, not just now, for while Ten Hag is here, but also to be thinking like, right, if it doesn't work out with Ten Hag, I've got to run this football club into the next manager, and I've got to be planning for him. 10 players is a lot, but I think it's the exact same. It might have been 11 under Ollie. I think as we got to Christmas in Ollie's first season, there were so many players that were like, or it was after he was appointed actually, there's so many players that contracts are coming to the end in that summer, and we automatically extended. I think Phil Jones was one of them.
Yeah. Let's get into some of these players then their contracts are running down. Let's have a look at some of the scale of some of these contracts. David De Gea, one you mentioned, his contract is up at the end of the season with a club optional extra year. I mean, typically in football it's club options, but I have seen in recent years a couple of player options in football, which is very sort of American sports. But typically all of these are club options. Yeah, well that's what it is. I think Mbappe's got a club option, a player option.
He's in charge of it.
So all of these are club options. So David De Gea, his contract runs out at the end of this season if United don't extend. He's reportedly, according to sportrack.com, which is a very comprehensive contracts website across all major sports.
Nerds.
Yeah, exactly. Is reportedly on £19 million a year, which puts him around 375,000, which is the biggest contract in the history of goalkeepers. And he was given that contract, a 6-year deal, or 5 with an optional 6th, in 2018, just after United signed Alexis Sanchez. So like you said, that whole thing has kind of disrupted this. Would you let David De Gea go at the end of his contract this year?
I would, but it did more than that. Dean Henderson walked in and went, I'm the reserve goalkeeper. I should get a quarter of what he's on.
90 grand a week?
Well, he's on 130, I think.
Right.
So, like, even more than that. Yeah, he came in and ended up on a serious wage, a third, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think that put him... I'm sure it put him in the top 10 paid goalkeepers in the Premier League. He's number 2.
Yeah.
He should be in the top 20, theoretically.
Luke Shaw is another one.
Yeah, no, bye.
Get rid?
But absolutely.
Cristiano Ronaldo looks like he might well be leaving in January, let alone at the end of the season, but I think that's a given that he's going to go in it, sure.
Yeah, I would. And I said it in the summer. I don't know why we kept hold of him. I think clearly that was a board decision over a Ten Hag decision, because Ten Hag's shown you his opinion of Ronaldo is he didn't want him. He's not playing him. Having the most paid player in our squad not playing is not value for money.
No.
I don't think you need to be an accountant to figure that one out. And he was never going to stay beyond this season, I don't believe, anyway. So, yeah, I'd absolutely move him on. Yeah,
£500,000 a week he's on, reportedly. Diogo Dalot, reports of an extension, but for me, I would just... hit that optional extension and give him till at least the end of this season before we start.
He can't be on a lot. What's he on?
Deals. Well, he's reportedly on. Diogo Dalot is reportedly on around $1 million a year, which puts him
20 grand a week.
20 or 30 grand a week. Yeah, I mean he's probably worth more than that if he's starting for Manchester United. But are you offering him a new deal yet?
No, I'd trigger the extension, see what, because there's a lot of talk. We're interested in a right back.
Yeah.
So I would, probably trigger his extension, see how he goes on for this season. Maybe even sit him down and say, we're going to trigger your extension. But at the end of the season, we'll sit down and we'll talk about your new deal. Or maybe at Christmas, we'll talk about your new deal.
Yeah.
So you've got like 3-4 months to impress the bollocks off us. And you decide what numbers we're going to put on this bit of paper.
Yeah.
Or you do it Brian Clough style. You tell him to sign it and then you fill it in when he's gone.
put what he's worth afterwards. Fred's another one, which is a bit of an interesting one because he's gone from being like... Opinion seems to sway every 6 months on Fred. It goes from he's not good enough, he's got to go, to he's the only one that's trying, to actually he's not in the team anymore, McTominay's keeping out, he's no good. Would you trigger that?
What's he on?
He's on around 100 grand a week.
For an international player playing at United, it's probably just the going rate, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if he can stick at the same price, as a squad player, I don't think that's a massive drama.
Yeah. Two more. I mean, there's a couple more. There's Dubravka, but obviously that's an option to buy. That's not particularly a problem. Phil Jones, I think we don't need to dig too much into Phil Jones, do it at this point, surely. Is there anything you want to say about Phil Jones that you haven't already said?
I can't believe he's still here.
Yeah. I don't think he can he really? Let's be honest.
I mean, is he even turning up and does anyone know?
I don't know, and I don't think so. I don't think anyone knows where he is.
Where are you? I'm playing PlayStation in my underpants.
Right, keep doing that.
Yeah.
Well, he's not even in the Premier League squad, is he now? So, he's just... The idea of giving him a new deal
gets extended
was so insane. It won't.
That's
get
literally
extended.
setting fire to money.
To be fair, he's not on that much money. I think some of the reports have been on 150 grand a week or wider the market. It's more like 60, 70 grand a week, which is again probably what he's worth if he's playing. It was a 4-year deal in 2020 that he signed, or a 3 with an optional 1 in 2020.
Who the hell signed that?
Yeah, I don't know. That was under Solskjaer, I think, when he first came in.
Again, though, like a lot of people will just pin that on Solskjaer.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a little bit of an input from him looking at the fact Ten Hag's been like, oh no, I don't know if it is actually. Ten Hag saying don't do it, maybe lines it up that it is a board thing.
Yeah. Obviously, he should go at the end of the season, I'm sure he will. And finally then, Marcus Rashford, who is coming into...
Well, there's more than that. There is more.
Well, there is. There's Axel Twanzebe.
I think his career is really teetering. If I'm Axel, or I know people who know Axel very well.
Yeah,
I would be getting him out of United and getting him playing. The guy just isn't playing enough football.
No, I think
it's not quite at the Phil Jones level yet, but it's heading that way.
Yeah, you just think he's not playing for Manchester United, so for his career he should go somewhere else. Tom Heaton. There's just a sort of a revolving door of third choice goalkeepers in England, isn't there? That they'd go from place to place. We'll probably have who was the one at Chelsea when they won the Champions League.
Garnacho's a very interesting one because he's shown a lot of potential and a lot of promise. And I do wonder if some of the cameos he's been getting, some of the bench namings he's been getting, are a little bit on the back of him sort of being lined up to sign a decent deal and become part of the first team. Rashford is the interesting one because he isn't yet showing the signs. I know he won Player of the Month, and I know he has scored, but he isn't yet showing the signs of being close to what he previously peaked at. And he's not that young anymore.
No, 24 years old.
He's supposed to be in what is his prime at the moment. I trigger the extension.
Yeah.
I give him the whole of this season to see where he's at, and we make a decision on him next summer.
Yeah.
He looked physically normal, back to his best. Mentally, still doesn't look there to me.
No. It's going to take a while, though, I think, in it with him.
Maybe, but career's 10 years at the top generally.
Yeah.
He ain't got that long left to get back onto the course that he was on.
Finally, just on that thing you mentioned about this being up to the directors of football now and John Murtaugh and Richard Arnold to sort of change this, do you think that they will listen to Ten Hag? Do you think that this, we could be moving in the right direction? Because when Rangnick sat down or came out in the press and said, there are things above me that need to be completely restructured, it's this sort of thing, isn't it? Like, do you think that maybe it's Murtaugh and Ten Hag together that are kind of coming up with this?
It has to be.
Is that me just being hopeful?
It has to be a collaboration, and it has to be one where you both have an input. What Murtaugh is meant to do, and some people aren't going to like this, but it's facts. What Murtaugh has to do is protect the club beyond Erik Ten Hag. So he has to go, let's say Garnacho, right? Let's say, as a pure example, and this is pure just like, hypothetical. Let's say Ten Hag goes like, I'm not really feeling Garnacho and I won't mind bringing Gakpo in. Murtaugh has to make a decision on whether bringing Gakpo in and allowing him to go for free, Garnacho, is in the benefit and the interest of the club. Because sometimes Jose Mourinho would have done some mad shit if he was given the full license to do everything. Now, I think you've got to lean 70 or 80% in terms of what the manager wants. And that's why I use Garnacho as an example, because he might be the one where you go, we think this kid's special, actually, and we would like to put our money on him in this instance. But the other, 4 out of 5 times this sort of conversation happens, I think you have to go with the guy in charge.
The club made the decision to bring in Ten Hag, and part of that isn't just what tactics does he put on the board, it's what is the character of the man, what is his track record of changing things at clubs, can we trust him? So it is backing their own decision to back the manager, and I think they have to do that. Yeah,
I just think that people want absolutes, don't they? And they have to go all or nothing, and I think sometimes there has to be a collaboration. What is the point in us having an academy? And I know this isn't Ten Hag, but what is the point in us having an academy if all the manager wants to do is just buy players? There has to be someone that's saying, can we give that lad a chance, please? Can we give that lad a chance, please? Because ultimately, when you go, this academy is still going to have to provide players for our first team, and we need to recruit the best boys in England and in Europe and South America. And the way that we sell the club to them is we go, we give you a chance, and if you're not giving people a chance, then that's pissing our recruitment off, and it's wasted that time. So it's not as simple as people say, just give the manager everything he wants. Sometimes you do have to have the club's angle, but I would expect at least 80% of what the manager wants, you back.
Are you happy that this is finally being brought in?
Yeah, because I think one of the main issues in the last 10 years we've had is just this dead wall hanging around. And people might not realise, but the club don't really give a toss about the transfer fees. They give a shit about the wages that they're committed to. And that would stop us signing players. But we let the likes of Mata and Matic and Pogba go in the summer, and Lingard. That was a lot of money that we cleared off the wage bill, and that's probably allowed us to bring in some of the players that we signed in, including like Casemiro and Anthony, who I'm sure not on nothing. When it gets to moving these lot off, and you get rid of Cristiano Ronaldo, you get rid of Cristiano and David De Gea, you've cleared up nearly £1 million a week. Yeah. That's going to go a long, long, long way. And then you got Phil Jones and Luke Shaw. You could probably get this with that list. You probably keep 2 of them on that list, clear £1.5 million a week. Yeah, like that. Yeah, that could be 5 world-class players. 5 players on 300 grand a week transforms that team. Yeah, you're getting world-class players, or you might get 10, on 150 grand a week. That's the depth of the squad just dealt with. And that's the issue, is a lot of people on that list are deadwood. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yeah. And they've got to get cleared out, and I'm sure they will. And by the sounds of it, Ten Hag is going to be doing that. Right, cheers, Steve, for coming on, giving us your opinion. Give us your thoughts at home as well. Man United supposedly finally getting their act together in terms of giving out these ridiculous contracts that we've seen over the last decade. Get your thoughts in the comments below and hit subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you in a bit.